Hello, hello. How are you? My screen is so big when I have to look up above to the camera. It's very strange. So, we're going through a lot lately. And right now, I wanted to talk about recovering from conditional love. What do I mean by that? So, recovering from conditional love, a lot of us chose to be born into families with various different traumas in our parents, in their way that they were taught love. A lot of the past love was around acts of service. It wasn't always about hugging. It wasn't always about physical love. And I'm not talking about sexuality. I mean, just like kissing or touching or those kind of things. And a lot of parents, etc., situations learned a very conditioned form of love. Let's look at things like, okay, as you're growing up as a child, your parents are knowing best for you, so they're trying to protect you, so they'll slap your hand when you go and touch something that might break, or if you go near the stairs, or you go to touch the stove. And that was deemed as an act of love, but it was actually also an act of what felt like a jarring violence to us as a child. We're a little innocent, and all of a sudden we're feeling pain. We're feeling no, we're feeling rejection to our freedom. And that begins to condition us. And a lot of our parents' age, this is how you taught your children, right? You gave them a spank, or you gave them a swat, or the teacher hit them with the yardstick if they were being bad, or those kind of things. And those things are no longer permitted, but we grew up with these things. And then we're trying to be that same thing in the world to our children, but we're also at the same time looking at the traumas we experienced, or the conditioning that we get experienced. And that's where the conditioned love starts to take form. So conditioned love kind of puts a bit of a cage on how we can feel loved, and how we what our freedoms are, etc. And it started at childhood. It's supposed to be protecting the child and keeping the child so he has rules and boundaries and other things. But those rules and boundaries don't stop as soon as we become an adult. They stick in us. Even simple things. So once we know how childhood development works, all the way up to the age of 8, we as a child have to just absorb everything like a sponge. We receive all the commands, all the rules, all this kind of stuff. It would be far too long for our parents to actually train us and explain in words everything that happens. So we pick up stuff in just by actions. How was mom and dad acting? How did they do this? When you get slapped on the hand, how do you know the difference between good or bad, or right or wrong, or what's like, I want to touch this thing, or I want to put it in my mouth, or whatever. This is how we learn as an infant. And then our parents are saying, no, you can't do that. It's them giving love, but it's also reinforcing with negative. So pain, or no, or these kind of things. And they get stuck in our nervous system. They get stuck in us. And then we start to have to comply with these things to feel love. Okay, our parents are really happy and joyous, and then some days they're not happy and not joyous, and we don't have the comprehension as a child to be able to say, why aren't they? Well, mom and dad are fighting. We didn't know that. Oh, they're having a divorce. Can you imagine the impressions that we get on our appearance of love by things that are outside our comprehension? So we start to get into this conditioned place. And then we get into later stages in life where we want to experience love with another person. Okay, the condition is, if you're a part of a church or Catholicism, Christianity, whatever, you must get married to that person before you can truly love them. You must have children with that partner before you can truly love them. And if you don't love them for the rest of your life, I love, honor, and cherish till death do us part, etc., then you're bad in societal comprehension. Love is a very fluid thing. Love is a thing that's based on freedom and play and ease and grace, but it's turned into complexity. What, for example, if you were born to a mother that had a trauma? and that mother was suffering that trauma and had that trauma in her body, and she was scared and she was angry at herself and this kind of stuff, how is the child going to experience love? That mother may love them and embrace them and hold them, but they get conditioned by the nervous system that that's normal love. So then when you go out after growing up and you go out and you try and experience love, you're looking for that in the nervous system of the person. So maybe you're going to attract more people that have had some kind of a trauma when they were younger. And then you get into this programming, this conditioning. Okay, this is how love is. Love has violence. Love has fighting. Love has frustration. Love has hitting, maybe if your parents had that. And then you're in that condition of how love works. And it takes a lot of effort to go and be cognizantly aware of what's in our nervous system as a human being. We are carrying these imprints of love, of how it was expressed, of maybe getting hit or beaten as a child with a spanking or whatever, and they were loving you because they didn't want you to have drugs, or they didn't want you to steal the car at night and go for a joyride with your friends. Those conditioned love pieces stick in our nervous system now. That over rotation, their trauma kind of coming out in the violence of them trying to protect you and spanking you or yelling and screaming at you, turns into twisting of the love. So the love has a condition with it. It's like, as long as you comply and listen to me, I will love you and you're lovable. Well, what happens when you're not those things and you disagree with it? Now you're fighting in your nervous system to say, okay, I can't be loved, or I'm not worthy of love, or I'm not capable of love. A lot of the human condition, the human experience, is trapped in these early programs. And a lot of our parents had traumas. A lot of the people that turned out to be our parents, maybe aunts and uncles or family members or whatever, had trauma. And we're now fighting against all these systems, and we're fighting against these. What it leads to is like a codependency. If our parent didn't feel loved, guess what? They're gonna, a mother that didn't feel love from her family or her parents or even her husband might go to her children and ask for that love from them. And then we love outside ourselves. It's like, I love you, darling, and all this kind of stuff. But you end up with hooks that come with the love. That's the conditions again. It's like, I'll love you as long as you listen to me, or I love you as long as you stay with me, or I'll love you as long as you let me be in control. And so we create these codependencies, and things like narcissism start to grow. These are rampant in family situations and marriages where people couldn't feel loved in how their life was or how their family situation was, but when they were young. So now they're trying to control it and structure it and ensure that the person that they have in their life is compliant, so that they can feel that love on a regular basis. But it's just a little child inside that's lashing out, that didn't know what unconditioned love was. So what's unconditional love? So the opposite of that. Well, what's love? That somebody just loves you no matter who you are or what you did or what trauma you had or how your face looks or what color your hair is or what bad things ever happened in your life. And they just love you. They just accept you, accept that as truth, no judgment. It's like, okay, you're that. Let's talk about it. Let's see it. Let's have it free. Let's be vulnerable. Let's disclose everything, so we're no longer burdened with, okay, I'm not worthy. But all of a sudden it's like, okay, maybe somebody sees me. Maybe somebody sees me as not a broken little child or this wounded person. That's where unconditional love starts to begin, where people start to interact in this seeing of each other, of expressing in unconditionality. Like how to describe unconditionality. So it's like, I'm going to show you the worst side of me so that I can feel confident that you're truly seeing me. So some person might have kind of like a verbal diarrhea share of everything that happened to them. I find this happens a lot because I see people unconditionally. So they'll lead with their traumas or really dark facts about themselves. And it's not a bad thing. It's kind of them testing to see my unconditionality towards them. And I draw the line, and you'll learn to draw the line that you won't have people be violent or angry or project on you, because you can still see a person's wounds as long as they're being self-responsible and accountable. So we're training our nervous systems into being more vulnerable so that we don't have to hold back, or here I am, yeah, I was raped or something, but I can't tell you that I was raped because that might make me lesser or lesser than you. I could care less. The very belief that there's something wrong with that, and there's a world filled with that, like almost everyone's got some kind of scary trauma. And so they run around and they want to have everything kept secret and hide, and I can only be loved if I'm a good little boy, or if I'm really nice and I'm whatever. Fuck no. You can be loved in your worst tears, your worst nightmare, your worst anger, your worst frustration. And the more that we get out and bring to the surface the thing that we're hiding or is keeping us small or we're trying to protect people from knowing, the more we can shine, the more our heart can open, the less that we're in a cage, and the more we expand. That's unconditional love, is the expansion into allowance, into acceptance. Can you change that your mother or father did this thing, or that you had this event that was traumatic in your life? Can you change it? No, that's struggle. That's trying to fix what was in the past. And we're now in a position where we have to be unconditional about everything. We have to be unconditional about our future. We have to live in this exact moment and reside in this body. And take a look at things like a lot of people that are very empathic and emotive, they are overweight. I was 280 pounds at my heaviest, and I was scared and was trying to scare everybody away and wanted to make sure somebody really loved me. If I felt I was ugly or whatever, then they'd stay away and I wouldn't have to deal with those pains and those wounds. Those are protections. Those are conditionalities. It's like hiding ourselves in plain sight under a mountain of fat. And I'm going to tell you also that people that are really thin and are very concerned about how they look and their figure and all this kind of stuff are just as broken inside. They are in conditioned state of, I have to be skinny, I have to be, they'll starve themselves to death, they're very angry inside. I've met so many women that look beautiful on the outside, but they're very ugly on the inside. And then you can also have people that consider themselves ugly on the outside and they're beautiful inside. Look at what love does to us and fitting in and these conditionalities. They twist us all up. They pervert us. They invert us. So how do we transition from conditioned love into unconditional love? Well, firstly, it's like giving yourself a break right here and right now. It's like stop the attachments to outside love. And a lot of us are transiting that right now. We're going into aloneness. We're losing friends. We're losing communities. We can't stand family or parents or whatever. I'm seeing it everywhere where people are pushing away and they're going into this little bubble. They're going into their space. They're feeling like let down by society and all this kind of stuff, but it's part of the process. It's kind of clearing all the attachments. If you set really strong boundaries and it scares somebody away, well, more than likely it was a good thing. Because we don't even know where people are hooked into us. How many friends do you have where as long as you call them all the time and you listen to their shit and this kind of stuff will love you, they'll call you all the time or whatever, but the minute you miss a phone call or the minute you don't, you want to talk about your stuff or whatever, all of a sudden it's like, hey, what kind of friend are you or whatever. These are the people that are the takers. These are the people that are living outside and they've perfected receiving from givers. And a lot of us are givers. And when you're conditioned to be a giver or a pleaser, you're most likely suffering from conditioned love, because the only way I feel loved is when people validate me. And if you're obsessed with getting likes on Facebook and getting the comments and all this kind of stuff, and I've been that way sometimes too, more than likely you're looking for love outside yourself. So as we move from having love outside of ourselves to looking inside of ourselves and self-validating and no longer trying to please or no longer looking for validation in numbers on Facebook or those kind of things, then things change. We start to give appreciation to ourselves. We change our self-talk. We start to say, hey, I love you. I wake up every morning, I'm like, I love you, Paul. And before I go to bed, I love you, Paul. And I give myself hugs when I'm laying in bed and other things. Even things like giving yourself pleasure. which some people look on negatively or whatever, is loving yourself, loving your body, giving yourself orgasm, giving yourself the beautiful brain chemistry that releases that come with self-pleasure. And then giving yourself the food you like and not beating yourself up by going on a diet and forcing yourself to eat shit you hate and all this kind of stuff. I've lived through all that. That's you trying to look nice for other people or to fit into some nutritional construct that's full of bullshit and this kind of stuff. Your body will eat whatever it wants. And if it's craving something, maybe it's a lack of love or feeling that it's not worthy of something or whatever, give it right now, especially. Go and have whatever it is. And as long as it's not, well, and it's okay, I guess, if you do it as well, as long as it's not self-debasing, like drinking yourself under the table so you can't feel or whatever. No, anything that enables us to love ourselves, like, holy shit, I'm giving myself a reward. Look at this beautiful steak, or look at this beautiful chocolate pie, or whatever it is. If you look over here, I've got a beautiful pumpkin pie waiting for me. I love myself. I get what I want and I do it, and I don't have to prove anything or make anybody happy or feel guilt or shame about it afterwards. So it starts there, loving yourself. How can you look inside your heart and say, holy cow, look at the amazing things that I've done. A lot of us will go and say, oh, geez, well, I didn't accomplish this and my job's failing and my work's failing and stuff like that. That all falls away because none of it is part of your love. It's about pleasing society, meeting expectations of parents, paying your bills, all this kind of stuff, and survival. Well, the things that are self-love is staying at home, looking at your shit, looking in your heart, looking at what's tight in your body, looking at what's not working out. And why are you mad about it? Why does it not feel good? Why are you sad? Why are you angry? Why are you whatever? That's self-love, to sit with yourself. And I do it all the time where I'm like sitting in my bed and I'll feel really wounded inside. So I'll go inside and I'll find that little inner child and I'll invite him. I'll sit up and I'll invite him to sit on my lap and I'll put my arms around him and just kiss him on the head and just sit and just feel. What are you mad about? What do you like? What would be fun? What would be whatever? And building this conversation. And eventually a little voice will come back and it'll be like, oh, okay, I want this, or I want to go play, or I want to play with a girl, or I want to play with a friend or whatever. These are all parts of us that are inside that have been told you're not worthy or you're not capable of, or things like I said, having parents that mangled up your love because they were traumatized, and then all you're receiving and worthy of is the same, getting your parent again, which is just a response to trauma. So going inside and saying, hey, I'm worthy of better. And hey, I've met this person or whatever. And I want to explore again. I want to step out. I want to step out of being traumatized. I want to step out of trying to be validated, blah, blah, blah. And then start giving yourself unconditionality. So often we'll say, okay, I can have this pie as long as I go for a walk. Well, you're loving yourself with the pie, but it's got a hook on it. I got to go for a walk because I'm worried about my weight, or I need some exercise, or I shouldn't be having that pie or whatever. This is just a story that was taught to you in the past, and it's created conditions around you being happy or to getting what you want or being self-worthy. Everybody talks about encouraging self-worth and self-esteem and these kind of things. Well, that starts with you talking to you. And how do you talk to yourself? Hey, you're a good person and you deserve money and things are good and keep going and you're doing your best. And I really love you no matter what you do, or even if you fail, I could care less. That's unconditionality. And then how's your conditionality of your love to other people? Do you see them for what they are and let them be respected and that kind of stuff in whatever way they show up? Or it's like, oh, I only let people in that are like me or willing to give or whatever. Or you set these really hard and fast ground rules that make you turn everybody away. That's a love problem. And are you loving people through attachment? Hey, it's like, as long as you phone me and you talk to me and you do all these things, then I love you. I suffer from this sometimes too, right? I spend lots of time talking to people or whatever, and we have chats and beautiful things, and then sometimes they don't phone back afterwards, and it's like, okay, what's going on? And well, no, I still love them. They're probably busy or they're processing what's going up or whatever, but that little boy inside wants, hey, I'd love to chat again and let's do this regularly and all this kind of stuff, like a happy puppy. So what's going on in your world? What are the things that you're kind of insisting people do? Because part of going on this journey is sometimes overreacting and overreaching, creating too many boundaries, creating too much hoops for people to jump through. And then eventually they don't want to be around you. But that also works in your favor, because the more and more you're alone, the more and more you get to look at yourself, and the more and more you get to be aware of why. So we're in a journey of unconditionality. So maybe next time when you're beating yourself up, or you're feeling sad, or you're feeling whatever, can you spend a minute and just say, hey, I'm perfect just the way I am. There's no condition. I don't have to have a job. I don't have to have a bunch of money. I don't have to have this many followers. I don't have to have any of these things. Just give yourself that and say, hey, you're doing the best you can with what you got. You're going to slowly and eventually rapidly realize that everything's perfect. Everything's poking our buttons and pushing our buttons and telling us where we're not loving ourselves. And the more and more we get used to that, and the more and more we accept that and see them as messages and guidance instead of getting beat up by the world, some really magical things start to happen. That's the unconditionality. Once we're in unconditionality, we're going with the flow. We're not controlling. We're not forcing. We're not pressuring. We get free, because the world has a flow. There's a plan. There's a bigger plan. Like, the world seems to be falling apart, but it's got to fall apart before it can get better. Do you think without the pressure of darkness, without all these negative things that have happened to us, we'd actually have enough pressure on us to make a choice for different? Or would we just sit in this lullaby that we've been living in and thinking that it's supporting us, but it wasn't? All these things are squishing us into taking the conditions off, taking us out of our cage. Consider a condition as a cage, or a limitation on possibility. And we want to unlimit our possibility. We don't want the things that continue to happen, or that happened in the past, to continue to happen. That's a condition. So now what we want to do is do things that are beautiful and boisterous and fun and playful and all this kind of stuff. And then the magic happens. And then the magic happens. We start getting out of the driver's seat, and we start going into surrender, into unconditionality. And it's a new place, but it's got such a big playing field compared to what we're used to. So go sit with that. Some of this is going to resonate. Some of it might not. Some of it might poke you. Some of it might make you angry. Oh, I got to look at my parents, or I got to look at this, or I got to look at that. It's all going to come up no matter what. I'm just giving a little pointer saying, hey, look over here. Look in here. Look up here. Look down at your body. See what's going on. Once everything's accepted exactly as the way it is now, there's a freedom. And that's what unconditionality goes. So we're breaking out of the conditioning. Think of it as a cage. We're doing the prison break, and it's going to take some time, and it's hard. And yeah, there's muck and dirt and stink we're having to go through. We're having to let people go. We're having to move by. A lot of times when you let people go and then you rebuild your boundaries and then you let them back in your life, you can rebuild that love. But until they have the boundaries and the unconditionality is there, they're going to hold on for dear life in the old way. But you're actually helping them in a way, waking up and change and shift. So it's not just for you, it's for everybody around you. So search for that unconditionality. If that doesn't make sense, or this is confusing or whatever, send me a note, send me a DM, put a comment down the bottom. But if you can really fathom this is stuff that's going to change your life, and it'll change very rapidly. And it's not simple. It's not easy. There's no recipe that does it. Start listening to stuff like this. Listen to all my videos, the New Perspectives on Reality YouTube page. Just search it up. There's hundreds of hours of stuff there that's going to break down your conditionality and change your perspective and change your whys by you making a choice, by seeing underneath and saying, oh, wow, I didn't know I was doing that. And then you can make a choice. And then the love flows in. You start to love yourself. Everything changes and the world changes. And it's beautiful. So I love you all. Have a great day. And we'll see you again on the other side. See you soon.